Unlike Nazi Germany, Imperial Japan was not invaded in the latter stages of World War II. No Allied armies actually set foot on the Japanese home islands until shortly after the Emperor announced the surrender.
I have received this afternoon a message from the Japanese government in reply to the message forwarded to that government by the Secretary of State on August 11th. I deem this reply a full acceptance of the Potsdam Declaration, which specifies the unconditional surrender of Japan. In the reply, there is no qualification.
In fact, between the announcement of Japan's surrender on the 15th of August and the arrival of substantial U.S. occupation forces on the 30th of August 1945 onwards, a hiatus existed that enabled the Japanese government and military to clean house and hide and destroy certain things. And apart from hiding or destroying incriminating evidence of war crimes, Japanese authorities also took to hiding wealth, in particular bullion, in an attempt to keep it out of Allied hands. Some of this wealth belonged to Japan, but a lot of it was the result of an operation codenamed Golden Lily, headed by Emperor Hirohito's brother, Prince Chichibu, that between the mid-1930s and 1945 had systematically looted the countries and colonies occupied by the Japanese of vast amounts of gold, silver, platinum, precious stones and artworks, in an operation eerily similar to that conducted by the Germans in Europe. Some of this vast amount of loot is still missing in 2020, hidden in secret caches across Asia or at the bottom of the sea after merchant ships transporting it to Japan were sunk by Allied submarines. It has given rise to the fabled Yamashita's gold, a supposed multi-billion-dollar hoard of bullion hidden somewhere in the Philippines that adventurers continue to search for today. Much of the bullion that reached Japan was resmelted into new bars, making tracing its country of origin impossible. But the Japanese determined that Americans would not get their hands on any of it. However, in 1946, U.S. occupation forces received an anonymous tip-off concerning a huge haul of bullion that had been hidden in Tokyo in July 1945. However, it had been dumped into Tokyo Bay in the hope of recovery by divers later on. It would be up to the U.S. Army to recover this loot quickly and efficiently. The advance party of the U.S. 1st Cavalry Division had landed unopposed at Yokohama docks on the morning of the 4th of September 1945. They would be the first U.S. forces to enter Tokyo. They progressively disarmed huge numbers of Japanese troops in the Tokyo area, and regiments of the division occupied various government buildings in central Tokyo. They also fanned out into the wider region, searching for war material that had been dispersed and hidden in caves and mountain hideaways. In October 1945, the 1st Cavalry Division began to seize stocks, precious metals, jewelry, foreign currency, and narcotics held by Japanese firms and industrial plants, impounding this material in vaults of the Bank of Japan.
Allied air power almost completely destroyed Japan's mint, but now Japanese women pull from underground vaults the treasure of their defeated nation, $250 million in gold, silver, and platinum. Japan's Army and Navy, after 1937, never had to account to anyone for their expenditures. Under Allied supervision, their funds will not again finance aggression or conquest.
By January 1947, 76 million grams of gold, valued today at $4.75 billion, as well as 1 billion grams of silver and 7 million grams of platinum had been seized and processed by the U.S. Army. Vast amounts of narcotics had also been seized and destroyed. As part of this vast hoard, the U.S. authorities got wind of the hoard of bullion dumped in Tokyo Bay in 1946. So in early June 1946, when the 1st Cavalry Division was tipped off about the submerged treasure, the military government moved fast to secure the area with armed guards, and a recovery operation was put in place. It would prove to be a challenging working environment. The harbour's high tide range and 4 feet of thick glutinous mud at the bottom, making recovery of the bullion extremely difficult. The bullion had in fact sunk deep into the silt. Codenamed Operation Mudsil, the U.S. operation involved military hard hat divers working when the tide was in, with poor visibility and using touch to locate the deeply buried treasure. The first find was promising. A diver recovered a 75-pound bar of platinum. Its value today would be over $1.1 million. Working hard, the divers began to recover bars of silver. They were quickly hauled to the surface, cleaned, catalogued and weighed. At low tide, U.S. sailors and divers worked in thick mud using water hoses to blast away silt as they searched for more treasure.
This sunken treasure was intended by Japanese factions for future operations after the Allied occupation. The last silver bar is brought up. The treasure will be held as partial payment of Japanese reparations.
In total, Operation Mudsil retrieved 1 bar of platinum and 840 bars of silver bullion. How much bullion remains unaccounted for in Japan is impossible to say. The biggest question of all is whether Yamashita's gold is real. Named for the last Japanese commander in the Philippines, General Tomoyuki Yamashita, for almost 80 years people have searched for vast hoards hidden by the Japanese army as part of Operation Golden Lily. It was hidden in the Philippines, where it had been gathered from across the Japanese-conquered territories for shipment on to Japan, but the dire war situation in 1945 prevented its movement by sea, so it was buried to enable Japanese teams to recover it after the war. Many people think Yamashita's gold is an urban myth, but evidence suggests it may be real. Its value today, somewhere in the region of hundreds of billions of dollars. We will return to this fascinating story in a future episode. Many thanks for watching. Please subscribe and share. You can also visit my audiobook channel, War Stories with Mark Felton. Please also help support both of my channels at PayPal and Patreon. Details in the description box below.